Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I think you can figure out that I'm the chairman of Homeland Security Appropriations Committee by the comments of the chairman. DHS has been doing all we can to catch and investigate criminals, illegal aliens, and smugglers that are pouring across our southern border. As the chief law enforcement officer of the land, you must do your part and follow through with the prosecutions and consequences. For the past 2 years, you have requested and received increased funding for immigration judges. Mind you, these are courts used 99% of the time by foreigners who are seeking an immigration benefit, yet still we fund them through taxpayer dollars. Why are we not placing these immigration judges on the border where the rubber actually hits the road? Why do our wait times increase even though we're increasing the number of immigration courts? And why does my staff report sitting in immigration hearings only to see case after case administratively closed, allowing thousands to circumvent immigration enforcement? Would you like to answer those questions?
Well, thank you for raising this important issue because, as you note, managing the immigration caseload is one that's become increasingly challenging for all of us. Those who are involved in interdiction at the border, those of us who are involved in prosecuting the cases that arise from that, the Department of Homeland Security as well, as they deal with not just deportation, but managing all the issues that flow from that. And so I thank you again for your commitment to that issue as well. Certainly with respect to our immigration judges, as you indicate, we have received increases over the last 2 years for the hiring of immigration judges. And let me thank this committee for recognizing the need for hiring more immigration judges and express the department's appreciation for your support with that. Certainly with respect to the total Office of Immigration Reform, we are in fact requesting additional funding but no new judges this year because we have brought judges on board. We're in the process of hiring more using the funds that were provided to us, and the additional funding that we are requesting is to make sure those judges are up and running. As you indicated, there are often long waits. They're just often crowded courtrooms, and so we are using the additional funding requests, or the additional funding requests would be used, I should say, to support the infrastructure for those judges. And so we want to be responsible with our requests and fully integrate those judges and continue the hiring under the money we already received. With respect to immigration judges on the border, we have tried to be flexible with regard to that. Certainly within the last year or so, it may have predated a bit my time as Attorney General, but as I'm sure you will recall from dealing with the Homeland Security issues, we have waves of individuals coming across the border at different times, and the composition of the groups will change. And so, for example, when we had large numbers of unaccompanied children and very young people coming across the border, in fact, what the Department of Justice did was temporarily reassign some immigration judges to the border areas to handle just the influx of cases there. And we look forward to continuing to be responsive in that way so that we could deploy judges to those areas where their colleagues would be overwhelmed. And we hope that the 20 new judges that were hired last year will go a long way towards that. And I believe we have additional hiring planned, as I mentioned, with the money that was already appropriated. So again, we feel that we can be flexible, and we look forward to continuing to be flexible. If there were to be a crisis again in another portion of the country, not the border, but maybe the northwest border, for example, or the northern border, we would again use that flexibility to make sure we could staff up those judicial offices so that their colleagues would not be overwhelmed. And so that's how we would intend to deal with that again. But we are requesting additional funding so that we can bring on board the judges, and we do appreciate this committee's support of the efforts of the Office of Immigration Reform.
Well, within the last 4 months, and we've had a sudden drop-off this month, but in the last 4 months, our numbers on the UACs, unaccompanied children, have gone right back up to 25 or 30,000. It's really unusual at this time of the year. Those of us who've lived in Texas and know what goes on at the border because we've lived with it all of our lives. It's cold, people don't come across the river. When it gets warm, people come across the river. It's just pretty simple. It's cold to get wet. And so the The situation is this is contrary to what we would expect. This means that there's something driving people up here. If we can't get them before an immigration judge, clearly, we give them a notice to appear. They are then picked up by another federal agency and transported God knows where in the United States. Could be all the way to Maine or Washington State or tip of Florida. We know where they're going with a notice to appear. Chances are, especially since most of the children that we're calling children are 14 to 17 years old. That's the highest number of category that are coming up as unaccompanied, quote, children. By the time they get reached, they'll have a good chance to be adults. Okay? That's we got to fix that. And I know you're trying, and you ask for more money for judges, I personally will give it to you because I truly believe the solution is bringing them before a court of jurisdiction and having a real hearing, not an agency and a bureaucrat. So thank you for what you're doing. Ask for more, and I personally will be on your side.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Judge. I want to recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Serrano.